After working a night shift and fixing a leak in our roof at 4 a.m., I came home exhausted. My back hurt, my hands were bleeding. I thought I'd nap for an hour. Instead, I woke up to my clothes stuffed in trash bags, my wallet empty, and a note on the fridge. "You're dead weight. Get out." My wife stood at the door, arms crossed, while my stepson smirked and tossed me the keys to my own truck. "Go cry somewhere else, don't come back," he said, locking the door. I slept in that truck for 3 nights. 2 months later, my phone was flooded with 47 desperate messages begging me. So here's the deal. I, 34M, have been married to Elaine, 36F, for 7 years. She's got a son, Craig, 19M, from her previous marriage. The kid never liked me, whatever, I get it. Teenagers are moody. But this story isn't about typical family drama. It's about how I went from busting my ass for these people to sleeping in my truck in the span of 1 day. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. They were everywhere. The way Craig would accidentally break my stuff. The way Elaine's eyes would glaze over whenever I talked about work. The constant comments about me not making enough money. The mystery shopping bags that would appear even though our credit card was maxed out again. But you know how it is when you're in the thick of it. You make excuses. You think things will get better. You remember the good times. I work night shifts. Yeah, it sucks. And I'd just finished a brutal 12-hour stretch last Tuesday. It was pouring rain, and I got a text from Elaine around 3:30 a.m. saying our roof was leaking in the living room. Great. Just what I needed after being on my feet all night. I drove home in the storm, grabbed my tools from the garage, and climbed up there in the dark with just my headlamp. Wind howling, rain coming down sideways, the whole deal. I found the problem. Some shingles had come loose and patched it up as best I could. Took me about an hour. By the time I finished, my back felt like someone had taken a baseball bat to it, and my hands were bleeding from scraping them on the roof tiles. I remember thinking, as I climbed down that ladder at 5 a.m., soaking wet and hurting everywhere. At least I fixed it. At least they'll be happy about that. Walked in, saw Elaine sitting in the kitchen scrolling through her phone. I told her I fixed the leak, but we'd need to get someone to look at it properly when the weather cleared. She barely looked up, just kind of grunted. "Cool, thanks for the appreciation." Whatever. I was too tired to argue. I remember saying I needed to crash for a bit before handling anything else. My plan was to nap for maybe an hour, then get up and deal with the water damage in the living room. I didn't even shower, just collapsed on our bed, still in my damp clothes. Next thing I know, I'm being shaken awake. Opened my eyes to see Elaine standing over me, arms crossed, face like a thunderstorm. Craig was leaning against the door frame with this smirk that I can still see when I close my eyes. I thought maybe I'd slept too long. Checked my phone. It was only 9:30 a.m. I'd been out for like 4 hours. That's when I noticed the trash bags. 3 big black garbage bags were sitting by the bedroom door, stuffed full. I could see some of my clothes poking out of the top of one. Before I could even ask what was happening, Elaine told me I needed to get out. Just like that. Said she was done carrying me, done with my excuses, done with everything. Said I was dead weight and she deserved better. I sat there trying to process what the actual hell was happening. Asked her if she was joking. She wasn't. Craig tossed my truck keys at me, telling me to go cry somewhere else and not come back. That's when I noticed my wallet on the nightstand, open and empty. The $200 cash I had in there, gone. I'm not proud of how I reacted. I started yelling, demanding to know what the fuck was going on. Elaine just kept repeating that she wanted me out now. Craig stepped between us, getting in my face, telling me how his mom had wasted 7 years on a loser like me. Side note, this kid who has never held down a job for more than 2 weeks, who still lives at home rent-free playing video games all day, had the audacity to call me a loser. The irony is not lost on me. I tried to calm down, tried to understand, asked if we could talk about this rationally. Elaine just pointed to the bags and said I had 5 minutes to get out before she called the cops. Went to the kitchen to get some water, try to think. That's when I saw the note on the fridge in Elaine's handwriting. "You're dead weight. Get out." It wasn't a sudden decision. This was planned. I grabbed the trash bags, still trying to argue my case. Craig started filming me on his phone, saying how he was documenting me losing my shit in case I tried anything. I wasn't even doing anything except asking why and what the hell. They literally pushed me out the door. Our door. The house I'd been paying for. The last thing I saw before the door slammed in my face was Craig's smirk and Elaine's cold eyes. Then I heard the deadbolt click. I stood there in the driveway for what felt like hours, trash bags at my feet, still wearing the same clothes I'd fixed the roof in. My hands were still scabbed over. My back still ached, and now I was homeless. Tried calling Elaine. Straight to voicemail. Texted her. No response. I could see them peeking through the blinds, watching me. I finally loaded my bags into my truck and just drove. Parked at the 24-hour supermarket lot and tried to sleep in the cab. It was uncomfortable as hell. and I kept waking up thinking this was just some fucked up nightmare. It wasn't. For 3 nights, I lived in that truck, showered at the gym, brushed my teeth in public restrooms, showed up to work looking like absolute garbage. My coworker Wyatt eventually noticed something was wrong and practically forced it out of me. Offered me his couch until I could figure things out. First thing I did, when I had access to a computer, was check our joint accounts. Cleaned out every last penny. 7 years of marriage and she took everything we had saved, which wasn't much but still, called the bank. Nothing they could do since she was on the accounts too. Called the credit card companies. Found out she'd maxed out both our cards in the days before throwing me out. Meanwhile, my calls and texts went unanswered. I drove by the house once and saw Craig's friends' cars in the driveway. They were having a fucking party in my house while I was sleeping on Wyatt's couch. That's when something in me changed. The confusion and hurt started hardening into something else. Something cold and determined. I stopped calling, stopped texting, started making plans instead. Got a small apartment with Wyatt's help, opened new bank accounts, went to work, kept my head down, started documenting everything. It's been 1 month since she threw me out like trash. 1 month of rebuilding my life from literally nothing. 1 month of swallowing my pride and accepting help from people I barely knew. 1 month of rage building inside me, keeping me awake at night. But here's the thing these two don't know. I'm not the type to just roll over and take it. I've been working my ass off my entire life. I know how to endure. I know how to wait. And I know how to fight back. Next time I post, I'll tell you about what I discovered when I finally talked to a lawyer. Let's just say Elaine and Craig have no idea what's coming their way. Because when you throw someone away like they're nothing, sometimes they come back as your worst nightmare. Update 1. Holy shit, y'all. Wasn't expecting my last post to blow up like that. The support from this sub has been unreal, TBH. Reading your comments actually made me tear up a couple times. Yeah, I know, not very manly, whatever. When your whole life gets thrown in the trash, knowing random internet strangers have your back hits different. So it's been just over a month since Elaine and Craig kicked me out of my own house. A lot has happened. Buckle up, because this shit gets wild. First off, I'm settled in a tiny studio apartment now. It's basically a shoebox with a bathroom. But it's mine. Wyatt helped me find it. Dude's been a solid rock through all this. After crashing on his couch for 2 weeks, I needed my own space. Even if it meant living somewhere that makes a college dorm look luxurious. The walls are paper thin. The shower takes 5 minutes to get warm. The microwave and fridge can't run at the same time without tripping the breaker. But every night I sleep here is another night I'm rebuilding my life. 1 step at a time. Something weird happened about 2 weeks ago. Was grabbing coffee at the gas station before work, and guess who I ran into? Elaine's cousin Sabrina. This woman has never liked me, always gave me the cold shoulder at family gatherings. But there she was, looking all uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact while waiting for her order. I was about to just ignore her when she suddenly came over, asked how I was doing in this weird, guilty voice. I gave her some generic hanging in there response. That's when she dropped the bomb. Apparently, Elaine had been planning to kick me out for months, had been talking about it at family gatherings, telling everyone I was lazy, useless, dead weight, said she was strategizing the best way to do it. Let that sink in. While I was working night shifts and fixing shit around the house, my wife was literally plotting to throw me out like garbage. The worst part? According to Sabrina, the roof leak that night wasn't even real. Elaine had sprayed water up there with the garden hose to create a plausible emergency that would tire me out. She knew I'd climb up there in the storm to fix it. She wanted me exhausted and vulnerable. Who does that? Sabrina seemed genuinely disturbed by the whole thing. Said she'd been feeling guilty for weeks knowing what was coming and not warning me. Better late than never, I guess. She also mentioned Elaine had been hiding money for months, skimming from our joint account into a secret one. That information was the kick in the pants I needed. The next day, I called a lawyer. Here's where things get interesting. The lawyer, this straight-shooting older guy named Frank, asked about the house. Whose name was on the deed? I realized I didn't actually know. The house had been my grandfather's. When he passed 5 years ago, I inherited it. Elaine and I had already been married 2 years by then. I just assumed we'd put both our names on the paperwork during that emotional blur after his funeral. Frank did some digging. 3 days later, he calls me with news that knocked me sideways. The house is still 100% in my name only. Let me repeat that. My name only. Turns out, we never updated the deed after my grandfather died. The lawyer handling his estate just transferred it directly to me. Elaine and I had talked about adding her name someday, but never actually did it. For 5 years, she's been living in my house, acting like it's hers. And here's the kicker. In our state, since we've been married under 10 years and the house was inherited, not purchased together, it's considered separate property, not marital property. Translation, it's legally mine. All mine. When Frank told me this, I just sat there in shock. Then something shifted inside me. That cold, determined feeling from before crystallized into something harder, something with edges. I spent the next week documenting everything. Got copies of all bank statements showing the cleared-out accounts. Printed the credit card statements showing Elaine's shopping sprees right before kicking me out. Documented all the texts and calls she ignored. Meanwhile, I focused on stabilizing my situation. Picked up extra shifts, started bringing my own lunch instead of buying it, canceled all subscriptions. Every dollar saved was another brick in the foundation I was rebuilding. At night, I'd sometimes find myself opening social media, even though I knew it would piss me off. Sure enough, there were Elaine and Craig posting pics of the renovations they were doing to my house with my money. New TV mounted on the wall, kitchen getting repainted, Craig's room getting some fancy gaming setup, all while I'm eating ramen in my shoebox apartment. But I didn't comment, didn't react, just took screenshots, adding them to my documentation file. Evidence of how they were spending the money they stole from me. Frank advised me to start separating our finances completely. I canceled the joint credit cards, removed Elaine as a beneficiary on my insurance, changed all my password, cut every financial tie I could find. That's when we discovered something that made my blood run cold. Elaine had taken out a personal loan using the house as collateral, my house, without my knowledge or consent. The loan was for $25,000. $25,000. Frank was shocked. That's straight up fraud. She forged my signature on the document. I never saw a penny of that money, but I'm supposedly on the hook for it. And what's she been doing with $25,000 of fraudulent loan money? Based on her social posts, remodeling my house and buying Craig a car. A car with my stolen money and my forged signature. It's like watching someone rob your house on a live stream and not being able to do anything about it. Except now, I can do something. Frank has been methodically building our case, gathering evidence of the fraud, preparing the legal document. We're not just going to get my house back, we're going to make sure there are consequences for what they did. The plan is set. The paperwork is ready. In 3 days, they're going to get the surprise of their lives. Yesterday, I drove by the house, my house, for the first time in weeks. They've painted the front door a hideous purple color. There were unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Through the windows, I could see people moving around, laughing, having a good time, living in my house, spending my money, acting like they've gotten away with everything. They have no idea what's coming. And yeah, before the Reddit lawyers chime in, everything we're doing is 100% legal. I'm not breaking any laws here, just reclaiming what's rightfully mine. Frank says the element of surprise is crucial. Elaine thinks she's won. She thinks I'm broken, living in my truck or on someone's couch, licking my wounds. She has no clue. I've spent the last month building a case against her. No clue I know about the fraud. No clue the house is still in my name. The paperwork gets filed tomorrow. Then it's just a matter of waiting for the sheriff to serve the document. I've taken next Monday off work. That's when it's all going down. Frank will be with me. We've thought of everything. One thing I've learned from this whole nightmare, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Elaine and Craig showed me exactly who they are. Selfish, cruel, greedy. Now I'm about to show them exactly who I am. And I'm not the doormat they think I am. I'm the storm they never saw coming. Finally, update. So, Monday happened. And holy fucking shit, you guys. I'm sitting here in my house right now, on my couch, drinking my beer, trying to process everything that went down in the last 48 hours. This is going to be a long one, but I promise it's worth reading till the end. First, thank you all for the messages of support. Literally, thousands of you reached out, shared similar stories, offered advice. That shit kept me going through some dark nights. For real. Monday morning, 8:27 a.m. I'm parked down the street from my house with Frank, my lawyer, beside me in his car. My stomach's doing somersaults. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours the night before. Kept having these weird dreams where I'd show up and the house would be gone. Just a big, empty lot. But there it was. My grandfather's house. My house. With that ugly purple door Elaine painted. Craig's new car in the driveway. Bought with my fraudulently obtained money. 2 other cars I didn't recognize parked on the street. At 8:59, the sheriff's car pulls up. Right on time. I give him a minute to walk up to the door, then Frank and I follow. Heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stayed back a bit, not wanting Elaine to slam the door before the sheriff could serve the papers. Through the glass panels beside the door, I could see movement inside. Then the door opened. Craig, standing there in basketball shorts and no shirt, looking confused as hell at the sheriff on our porch at 9 a.m. on a Monday. Behind him, I spot Elaine rushing over, tying a robe around herself. I couldn't hear everything, but I saw the exact moment when the sheriff handed over the stack of documents. Saw Craig's face go from confused to shocked. Saw Elaine grab the papers, eyes scanning frantically. Then she saw me standing behind the sheriff. Y'all, Her face, I wish I had a picture. That moment when she realized she wasn't in control anymore, when she realized she'd fucked with the wrong guy, that moment was worth every night I spent in my truck, every ramen dinner in my shitty apartment, every tear I'd swallowed. The sheriff explained that they had 48 hours to vacate the premises. That's when Elaine lost her shit, started screaming that it was her house, that I was harassing her, that she'd call the police. The sheriff, who was the police, just pointed to the legal documents and said everything was in order. Craig tried to get aggressive, stepping toward me with his chest puffed out. The sheriff shut that down real quick. Frank calmly walked them through the facts. The house was solely in my name. They had committed financial fraud by taking out loans against property they didn't own. They had emptied joint accounts and stolen cash from my wallet. Every accusation backed up with documentation. The look on their faces as he laid it all out, priceless. Truly fucking priceless. Elaine switched tactics, going from rage to tears in 2.5 seconds. Started sobbing about how I couldn't just throw them out. Where would they go? How could I do this after 7 years together? I just stood there, silent, letting her performance play out. That's when Craig made his mistake. Called me a pathetic loser who would probably come crawling back after a week of living alone. Said his mom had only stayed with me out of pity. Frank had advised me to stay calm no matter what. But something in me snapped. I looked Craig dead in the eyes and told him he had exactly 48 hours to get his shit out of my house before I had everything they left behind hauled to the dump, including his precious gaming setup that my money had paid for. The sheriff warned them not to damage anything or remove fixtures from the house. All the renovations they'd done, legally mine now. The fancy TV they'd mounted to the wall, mine. The new appliances, mine. We left them standing there, staring at the paperwork, reality finally sinking in. I felt lighter than I had in months as I walked back to my car, but the real shit show was just beginning. About 3 hours later, my phone started blowing up. Elaine calling, texting, then calling again. I ignored it all. Frank had told me not to engage directly. Everything needed to go through him now. By evening, I had 17 missed calls and 23 texts. Everything from threats to tearful pleas to get back together. Screenshots of all of them went straight to Frank. The next morning, Tuesday, I checked my phone and nearly dropped it. 47 messages overnight. Voicemails, texts, DMs on every social platform we'd ever shared. Emails. Even a fucking letter slipped under the door of my apartment. How she found my address, I still don't know. The messages started with anger, then bargaining, then full-on panic as she realized I wasn't bluffing. The later ones were borderline incoherent, talking about how she'd changed, how she'd made a terrible mistake, how Craig was sorry too, doubt. The last one, sent at 4:13 a.m., just said, "Please, Randy, we have nowhere to go, no money, nothing. Please talk to me." I sent one reply at Frank's direction. "All communication must go through my attorney. His contact information is in the documents you received." Then I blocked her on everything. Wednesday morning, the 48-hour deadline. Frank and I meet the sheriff at the house again at 9 a.m. sharp. I half expected them to barricade themselves inside, but to my surprise, there was a small U-Haul in the driveway. Craig's car was gone. The other cars too. Elaine was standing on the porch, eyes red and puffy. Craig nowhere to be seen. She tried to approach me as I got out of my car, but the sheriff stepped between us. I'll never forget what she said as I walked past her to my house. Said I couldn't do this to her. Said I'd regret it. Said Craig was right about me all along. I just kept walking. Inside, the place was a disaster. They'd clearly left in a hurry, took what they could carry and left the rest. The renovations they'd been bragging about online? Half finished. Walls partially painted. Kitchen cabinets removed, but not replaced. And out of spite, they'd done some damage. Holes punched in walls, scratches on the hardwood floors from dragging furniture. The bathroom sink cracked. But here's the thing. I didn't even care. The house was mine again. The trash had taken itself out. Frank documented everything for potential additional legal action. Then shook my hand and said the worst was over. He'd handle the fraud case from here. The bank was already investigating the forged loan documents. Elaine was potentially facing serious consequences for that. After they left, I just sat on the floor of my empty living room, alone in my house for the first time in 2 months. It didn't feel like victory exactly, more like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. I called Wyatt, who showed up an hour later with beer and pizza. We sat on the floor eating and planning what needed to be fixed first. The roof, obviously. Then the damage Elaine and Craig had done. He offered to help on the weekend, said some of the other guys would too. Real friends, not people who throw you away when you're inconvenient. That night, I slept on a camping mattress in my bedroom. Best sleep I've had in months. The next few days were a blur of cleaning, organizing, making lists of repairs. I was off work, using vacation days I'd saved up. Every hour I spent reclaiming my space felt healing somehow. Then yesterday, something unexpected happened. A knock at the door around 6 p.m. I opened it to find Alexandra, Elaine's sister. She looked nervous as hell, standing there twisting her wedding ring. I hadn't seen her since before Elaine kicked me out. She and her husband Stetson had always been at family gatherings, though Stetson was a piece of work, always talking over her, controlling everything. Alexandra asked if she could come in, said she needed to talk to me. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She broke down crying almost immediately, said she was sorry about what Elaine did, said she'd tried to talk her out of it, then dropped the real bombshell. Elaine and Craig were staying with her and Stetson, sleeping in their basement. But Stetson was making life hell for all of them, especially Elaine. Taking her money, what little she had left, controlling when she could leave the house, even what she could eat. The irony wasn't lost on me. Elaine had gone from treating me like garbage to being treated like garbage herself. Alexandra wasn't there to beg for Elaine, though. She was there for herself. She wanted out, away from Stetson. Had been planning it for months, but never had the courage. Seeing me stand up for myself had given her the push she needed. I sat with her for 3 hours helping her make a plan. Called a friend who works with a women's shelter, made some calls. By 10 p.m., she had a safe place to go and a plan to get her stuff out while Stetson was at work. This morning, I helped her move the essentials to a storage unit. She cried, saying she never thought I'd help her after what Elaine did. I told her she wasn't Elaine. She hadn't done anything to me. Now it's evening. I'm sitting on my back porch with a beer, watching the sunset. My house still needs a ton of work. My bank account is still recovering. The legal stuff with Elaine isn't fully resolved yet, but I'm free. And I'm stronger than I was 2 months ago. Funny thing, Alexandra texted me an hour ago. Said Elaine and Craig just found out she left Stetson. Apparently, Stetson blamed them for Alexandra leaving and kicked them out. They have nowhere to go. No money. No car. Craig's got repossessed yesterday. No friends willing to take them in. Karma really is a magnificent bitch. So that's where things stand now. I'm rebuilding. They're falling apart. And every day I'm a little less angry and a little more at peace. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me, Reddit. Your support meant more than you know. Oh, and to that one commenter who asked if I'd take Elaine back if she apologized and changed, LMFAO. Not if she was the last woman on Earth. Some bridges don't just burn. They get fucking nuked from orbit.